I built my dream physique in just a few years of going to the gym, after being super thin almost my whole childhood. I can still remember the days when I would show up to the gym and I was super self-conscious. I was still really skinny. I'd been going for a while. However, I just wasn't able to put on any weight and any muscle. And because of this led to me having low levels of confidence and low levels of self-esteem. In this video, I'm going to go over with you the exact diet which took me from being super thin my whole life, being unable to put on weight, unable to put on size, to building my dream physique in just a few years, so that you can do this in half the time it took me. First of all, I want to talk about modern day fitness influencers and why a lot of their advice is so damaging. If you have a look on YouTube and you have a look at some of the biggest names in the fitness industry, a lot of what they're talking about is just bulking up and then eventually cutting down. Now, a lot of the topics which you'll talk about within this kind of topic, they'll be talking about calories in, calories out, and how in order to put on size and muscle, it's all just about calories. It's all just about getting in as many calories as you possibly can so that you forces yourself to put on weight, and it doesn't matter how you actually get these calories. So if you have a look at this, a lot of people talk about doing 10,000 calorie a day challenges. A lot of people of them are actually in America. They're just going to fast food restaurants because obviously there's a very calorie dense food and it's going to really help you bulk up quickly. However, I just want to talk about why this is actually such a scam. And the reason for this is because calories in, calories out, it's not actually an accurate topic, because you're actually not talking about the nutrients and the macronutrients which are going into your body, which are going to be completely damaging if you kind of buy into this topic. The concept of just 1 calorie is the same as another calorie and it doesn't matter how you get these calories, is completely false. If you get 100 calories from a meal which is a fast food restaurant, for example, as opposed to like a healthy organic meal, the calories that you get from this fast food meal are going to really completely damage your insides and going to damage your body. Long term, this is also going to lead to a lot of health issues, and that's not really the kind of reason why you got into the gym in the first place. It's just that some people just get too obsessed with it and they end up eating unhealthy because they're just obsessed with putting on calories and putting on weight so they can bulk up. On the other hand, if you follow some of this advice I'm going to go through, you can still build a ton of muscle really quickly and really efficiently. However, you're going to do it in a sustainable way where you're still going to be healthy. You're not going to run into all these health problems when you're older. And just having that understanding that a calorie isn't the same as just any other calorie, and that the way that you kind of get your nutrition is a lot different and it affects your body a lot differently, that's going to really help you build a sustainable physique. So the reason why I think bulking and cutting is a scam is because, first of all, if you talk about going through bulking, it's just literally about putting on as much size as humanly possible, and it doesn't actually matter how you do this. This is how it's portrayed by a lot of people online. So what a lot of people do is they'll go ahead and they'll just start eating ice cream, they'll start going to fast food restaurants, because this is what's portrayed online by the fitness industry. And they'll just start bulking up, putting on as much size as possible, just eating anything. And this is going to lead to, like I said, it's going to lead to a lot of health long-term benefits. And in addition to that, it's actually not going to put on as much muscle as you actually should be putting on, because a lot of the macronutrients inside of this food are actually really damaging to your hormonal system, and they're really damaging to your body as well. So once you've done this and once you've put on a ton of size, you've actually put on way too much fat and not enough muscle. So then after this, when people go through the cutting phase, their goal is to just kind of keep the weight that they're at the gym the same. And so they're looking to just keep the same amount of muscle, the exact same as what they had built up over the bulking session. And then they're just looking to trim down all the fat which they'd actually built on. Now to me, this just seems like such a waste of time and effort. When I actually did this, I realized that I wasn't actually putting on as much muscle as I could have been putting on when I was lean bulking. Because when you're lean bulking, you're not putting on the fat in the first place. So you don't need to spend months and months actually trimming the fat down after putting the fat on, just so you can increase your size over a certain amount of time. So I kind of found that overall this was a waste of time. It's a lot more efficient and effective if you just actually bulk up in a lean way. And I found that this has really helped me personally put on a ton more muscle in a shorter period of time. In addition to that, you also feel a lot more confident. You're not just going through a couple months of the year where you're kind of fat, you're oversized, and you're doing it intentionally, just so eventually in the summer months you can trim down a lot of the fat and just keep a little bit of the muscle which you've built over the bulking session. So because of this is why I think bulking and cutting is a scam. You're putting on way too much fat, you're not putting on enough muscle, then you spend way too many months just trying to keep the little bit of muscle you've built on the exact same and not actually increasing your size, just so you can trim a lot of the fat that you put on so much effort just to get there in the first place. So now I want to talk about one of the topics which is going around online, which is the carnivore diet. This is where essentially 80 to 90% of your diet is literally just raw meat. And if you think about it, this is actually how our ancestors used to live back in the day. If you think about what we used to be eating 10,000 years ago, it was just actually meat. It was red meat, and on the side there might have been a little bit of vegetables, there might have been potatoes and things like that. However, generally, we were kind of eating a carnivore diet back in the day. And what's really interesting is, once we were eating this diet, we also found that levels of testosterone in humans back then were a lot higher, and also a lot of these modern day health issues like diseases, cancers and whatnot, they were actually significantly less common than they are today. So although I'm not particularly recommending you go ahead with a carnivore diet, although it has shown proven benefits, what I do want to put to you is, when you're shopping and when you're actually looking at food to buy, you should be looking at single ingredient food only, and they should be organic. So what I mean by single ingredient food is, have a look at a lot of the shelves next time you go shopping, and have a look at a lot of the items that you normally buy, and actually have a look at the ingredient list on a lot of these items. You might see that a lot of them, like some of these noodles a lot of people buy, some breakfast cereal, they've actually got a ton of ingredients in the ingredient list, and a lot of times people don't actually know what any of this means. A lot of it is just like random chemicals which are put in there, and like just random things that, scientists or doctors have put in your food and recommended that it's healthy for you, and just put it in your food. But if you actually have a look at the ingredients, you actually can't really actually decipher what a lot of these actually mean, and so you actually don't really know what you're actually putting into your system. So therefore, if you want to put on a lot of weight and you want it to be clean muscle and you want to do it in a really fast fashion, then I really suggest that you look out for meals that are single ingredient meals. So this is something like steak, this is something like eggs, chicken, possibly rice, also potatoes, just a lot of fruit and vegetables where you know exactly what you're getting when you're purchasing this food. Another thing I would recommend is look out for the word organic. So if you look out for the word organic, this is really going to help to actually get some food in you that's actually really healthy, that has the proper macronutrients, and is going to help you boost your muscle growth really quickly. The reason why this is really important is because a lot of modern day steak and a lot of farming processes, they're actually done unsustainably, and a lot of cows are actually fed conventional diet as opposed to their proper natural organic diet, which is outside getting sunlight and eating grass. And therefore, so if you're actually consuming this meat that's being kind of produced conventionally, then that's just going to lead to the quality of the meat being significantly lower, and it's going to lead to a less beneficial impact on you. So in terms of building muscle, if you want to do this as efficiently as possible and as fast as possible, I think you should also really look out for the word organic. In terms of hitting your protein goals, I've found that it's just most beneficial to aim for a set number each day so you can keep your meals the same. So you've probably heard that 1 gram of protein should be what you consume for every gram or for every pound your body weight is. So for example, if you're 200 pounds, you should be aiming for 200 grams of protein. And we've actually found that the most recent meta-analysis shows that you only need 0.81 grams of protein per pound of body weight. But generally, I just aim for a set number each day so that you can keep it the same each time. So I aim to stay at around 200 pound lean with about less than 10% body fat. So what I recommend is I just go for around about 160 to 170 grams of protein each day. I think that's a really solid number to aim for. Another thing that I want to mention, which a lot of people get wrong, is a lot of people try and avoid fat, and they feel like fat's unhealthy, that it's going to boost their cholesterol. And I've just seen so many people talk about avoiding fats and kind of taking these out of your diet. Now, this isn't actually true, because a lot of this healthy, like unsaturated fat that you get from avocados, that you get from steak, that you get from eggs, and things like butter, a lot of them are actually, if you actually source this fat in a healthy way, this is actually really going to help boost your growth hormone in the gym, and it's going to help boost your testosterone. So this is something which I wish I knew a lot sooner. It's really helped me. If you're actually aiming to get as much fat as possible, but you're aiming to do it in a sustainable way, this is really going to help build up your testosterone. It's going to really help with your muscle growth in the gym. A lot of it's healthy and sustainable nutrition. Again, think about too what our ancestors used to do. Our ancestors wouldn't be avoiding things like avocado, and they wouldn't be avoiding things like steak just because they've got unsaturated fat in them. And they wouldn't be looking at avoiding this just to lower their cholesterol. Because if you actually look at back in the day, before the last 100 years or so, the average level of cholesterol were actually a lot lower in people. So if you actually think back to what they were doing things a lot different to us, where they actually weren't trying to avoid that fat, and it actually really benefited them, and it actually really helped them to kind of build a nice frame, nice physique. There were low levels of obesity and low levels of health issues. Getting into what I personally think is the best diet for your nutrition and for bodybuilding is just the more simple, basic diet. I want you to just kind of simplify it down a lot. So a lot of food you can eat is... So some of the best foods you can eat are steak, which is really heavy in protein, really heavy in fat. It's got the essential macronutrients that you need to build up your muscle growth really quickly. Other foods like chicken, which are really high in protein as well. So just a lot of these like meat, vegetables and fruit as well. You can eat a lot of potatoes. That's going to really help build your muscle growth. I also really like avocados, and you should also add vegetables in as well, like lettuce, cucumber and whatnot, carrots. This is all going to help as well, just to kind of build up that physique. But I would really prioritize just getting in some healthy, organic, single ingredient meat in your diet, like steak and chicken. Those are kind of the two ingredients that have really helped me build up my physique really fast. Another thing which I want to talk about is eggs. So people think that eggs increase your cholesterol. However, there's actually been studies where some people have actually had 1,000 eggs in 7 days and their cholesterol actually went down. It's in the recent experiment that came out. So this is actually something which is really interesting, because so many people think it's bad for you, it increases your cholesterol. However, it actually has been proven that that's to be false. And in addition to that, a lot of eggs have a ton of protein in them. They're also really good for testosterone. So I recommend, if you can, have at least 4 to 10 eggs a day. This is really going to help with muscle building. It's a really healthy ingredient. It's also a naturally sourced ingredient. It doesn't have any chemicals in it. It's just going to be a natural, organic kind of substance. And it's really going to help boost muscle growth, testosterone, growth hormone, everything. So if you follow this diet, which I've just laid out for you, you're prioritizing red meat, you're eating chicken, vegetables, meat. You can also eat berries, kind of fruit or anything else. And you can add nuts in as well. However, if you're just prioritizing the simple basic diet and you've kind of like trimmed down to single ingredient meals, you're sourcing organic kind of food, then what you're going to notice is you're actually, for some reason, you're just going to put on muscle a lot quicker. If you compare this to just actually trying to bulk up, trying to get as many calories as possible, you might put on a little bit of muscle, but you're also going to put on a ton of fat. Then you're going to have to go through that whole draining process of cutting down the fat, trying to keep the muscle up. However, I found if you just lean bulk and you don't worry about cutting or bulking and just try and aim for your calorie goals within this kind of subset of ingredients within this diet I've laid out for you, you'll find that you're going to put on muscle a lot easier. You're also going to feel a lot more confident. You're going to feel like putting on this muscle is just going to come naturally. It's going to be so much easier. You're also going to have really low levels of fat, and you're going to be able to stay with a six-pack year-round while also putting on weight and muscle. So therefore, I think this is the best diet for you. I've experimented with a couple different diets, and I think this is by far the most effective one.